This is dedicated to the homies that was down since day one. Welcome to Drop D.
The show. This is Quick Hits, a JFK assassination news and notes podcast. I am but 50% of your host, Rob Clark, and along with me, as always, my better half, my new better half, my old better half, Doug Campbell.
What's going on, Rob? Hello, my friend.
Hi, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Happy December. How you doing?
Oh, I'm fantastic. It's like 60 degrees here in December, and awesome. Love it.
We've got the same thing going on. It's a little rainy, and it's very gray, but it's warmed back up to about 60 degrees from 2 mornings ago. It was 19 when I left home to go to work.
That's fine. As long as it's a little gloomy outside, it matches my personality. Let's go.
Come on, dude. I call you Mr. Sunshine. Come on.
Oh, everybody just wants to blow sunshine up my ass.
Well, me included, apparently. Me included. I'm so sorry, buddy. I'm so sorry. Well, you know what? Let's get away from the gloom and get into the study material, man. We've got a lot to pass on today, and you've got. Hey, first of all, you've got an upcoming appearance on a podcast you're going to tape today. Did you want to plug that for everybody? Let everybody know to be looking for that.
Yeah, I don't know when it's going to drop, and hopefully it goes well. Be looking out for Roberta Glass's True Crime Report. Your boy will be on in a future date. I don't know when it's coming out, but be looking for it. Go ahead and go subscribe to Roberta Glass's True Crime Report. She is fantastic at what she does, and always has a very entertaining and informative show. So make sure you're checking it out. Go subscribe, and be looking out for your boy on her show coming up very soon.
Well, I will be on the lookout. I will absolutely check it out when it comes out. I can't wait. Also, hey, Momo's back in the booth. What up, Momo? So everybody's here, man. I guess we're ready to start.
Well, Doug, I thought I would give Momo a compliment. I went back and listened to the last Quick Hits, and it sounded really good. So, Momo, you're doing a great job, buddy.
How much obliged?
All right. Well, let's. Dude. We have, I believe, I got an email from Mr. Joe Bax that, let me see, where did my soundbite? There it is. There's my soundbite. We've got a special report. Almost dropped the ball on that one, Rob. Momo stepped out of the booth for a minute. I had to do that one. I got an email from Mr. Joe Bax the other day, and it is a media advisory, guys. Rob, I thought I'd pass this along to you and the listening audience because this is the kind of thing that we are interested in. It is a media advisory press conference, National Press Club, Washington, D.C., guys, Tuesday, December 6th, 3 days after the recording of this show. I'll make sure to try to get this show uploaded and so everybody can have a heads up. This is a press conference at the National Press Club, Washington, D.C., Tuesday, December 6th, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Smoking Gun in the JFK Files. That is the title. That's what the heading here. What has the government been hiding for nearly 60 years? Rob, I'm going to read a little bit of this press report, or press release, if that's cool. All right.
Pray tell.
All right. It says, with President Biden's December 15 deadline, for full disclosure approaching, the nonprofit Mary Farrell Foundation, sponsor of the Internet's largest collection of searchable JFK documents, will present evidence of a potential major break in the JFK assassination story. Did you hear that, guys? Tuesday, December 6th. The Mary Farrell Foundation is having a press conference at the National Press Club to present evidence of a potential major break in the JFK assassination story. We have been peeling layers off the onion. That is the murder of a U.S. president at the height of the Cold War year by year, says Mary Farrell Foundation President Rex Bradford. Our work remains unfinished. In October 2022, the Mary Farrell Foundation sued President Biden and the National Archives for failure to implement the JFK Records Act of 1992. And, of course, we had the lead attorney on that legal filing, Bill Simpich, excuse me, on the show right here on Quick Hits the week that happened, guys. If you haven't heard that interview, go check that out. Now, from Jefferson Morley, astonishingly, the CIA continues to conceal its, quote, sources and methods, unquote, around the alleged assassin Lee Oswald. But we know where the rest of the Oswald story is hidden in the JFK files that the CIA has redacted or denied in full. These records relate to a still classified covert operation approved by senior agency officials in June of 1963 that used Oswald for intelligence purposes. Is this operation of CIA incompetence or complicity? We can't be sure. Only full disclosure on December 15th will resolve the issue. Now, that's intriguing, Rob. What do you think about that? These records relate to a still classified covert operation approved by senior agency officials in June 63 that use Oswald for intelligence purposes.
Well, I'm trying to pull up here exactly what he's talking about because I figured we'd share that with the listeners as well and get a little bit more specific. So here we go.
Yeah.
And this is from Jefferson Morley's website, JFK Facts. All right, so he's claiming there's a smoking gun, and it will be found in 44 CIA documents that are still denied in full. And it says, with in a memo, okay, we did that. Sorry, we're doing this on the fly, folks. So, now, after 28 years of reporting and reflection, I'm ready to advance the story. Jane Roman was correct. A small group of CIA officers was keenly interested in Oswald in the fall of 1963. They were running a psychological warfare operation authorized in June of 63 that followed Oswald from New Orleans to Mexico City later that year. One of the officers supporting this operation was George Joanides, a career CIA officer whose records I sued for in 2003. The evidence of the undisclosed Oswald operation is found in one partially declassified document from 63 and 43 additional documents found in Joanides' personnel file that have been denied in full, meaning no portions of them have been made public. This partially declassified document, partially released in 2004, shows that Joanides was cleared for special intelligence in June 63.
Okay.
Special intelligence is the CIA's term of art for wiretap information. This document raises a key question. Was Joanides cleared for receiving information from wiretaps in Mexico City?
Now, dude, what have I always said? What have I always said, man, about knowledge of those wiretaps in Mexico City?
Yeah, somebody had to have them. Had to be involved in the assassination.
They had to know that those wiretaps existed. The number of people that knew about them, a dozen or less in the world, the most closely guarded secret operation that they had in the Western Hemisphere, the CIA, was the Mexico City wiretap operation. And whoever set Oswald up had to have known that those wiretaps were there. That's why I always think about people like David Christ, who actually wired that building, right? Yeah. Or wired those buildings. He planted those bugs. If you guys don't know who we're talking about, it's a cat named David L. Christ. He was the CIA's, when they wanted to bug a building, he was the guy they sent in there, right? He did Mexico City. He got caught by Castro's government in the act of wiring the Chinese embassy in Cuba for the CIA, and they threw him in prison, and he was in prison at the same time as Traficante and John Martino, Santo Traficante and John Martino in Cuba. And Hall and Lauren Hall. So that's one avenue. It's like, could they have learned about those wiretaps from him in the prison? Because whoever helped set up Oswald had to have known about him. And, Harvey is one. We know Bill Harvey knew about him. He's one of those guys that had that specific information. Like, they talk about, Rob, like plausible deniability and compartmentalization. Even like the director, like McCone, he's getting the analysis of the intelligence, right? He doesn't necessarily know how they're getting the information, right? Specifically, because it's compartmentalized.
He goes on to name the 6 individuals in the high up of the CIA who were interested in Oswald in the fall of '63. I think you'll find these names very interesting, Doug.
Okay, lay it on me.
All right, so in October of '63, Oswald traveled to Mexico City and made phone contact with a known KGB officer named Vladimir Kostakov. The conversation was overheard by a special intelligence collection program in Mexico City known by codename Lienvoy. I believe Joe Nedes was cleared for Lienvoy material as part of the undisclosed Oswald operation. Some will scoff at the notion, only the CIA knows for sure. And he goes on and on. We've had ARB Chair Judge John Thunheim repeated his call for release of the Joe Nedes files. In 2018, Judge Brett Kavanaugh tossed my case out of court, ruling the CIA deserved deference upon deference when it came to JFK files. Kavanaugh's colleague, conservative jurist Judge Kieran Henderson, denounced his arbitrary decision in a stinging dissent, which can be read online. In June of 2020, he filed a request for a mandatory declassification review of these 44 records. The MDR process is an established mechanism for reviewing decisions made under the Freedom of Information Act. And in the past 2.5 years, I've been assured 3 times by CIA officials that my request is still under review. When these documents are finally released as required by the JFK Records Act, I believe they will shed light on a CIA psychological warfare operation involving Lee Harvey Oswald, which the CIA has never disclosed. As for the conspiracy question, the massive withholding of documents makes it premature to draw any conclusions. The undisclosed Oswald operation was not necessarily part of a conspiracy. It might indicate CIA incompetence, but not complicity. Again, Only the CIA knows for sure. So let me find the other part of this where he names names.
I guess incompetence is a good. That's one way to put it. The way I've always felt, like the people that framed Oswald and murdered Kennedy, they used this low-level asset, Oswald, in a way that quite literally dropped it in their laps, dropped it in CIA's laps. And it was done in a way where they knew, I guess, incompetence, the fact that the operation was run through CIA shops without, right under their nose. I guess that could be construed as incompetence, but the plotters knew that it would force a cover-up. This is something they anticipated. I don't think necessarily that the upper echelon power brokers in Washington were involved in the cover-up or facilitated the cover-up because they were involved in the crime. In other words, right?
Right. Okay, so here I finally found the names. Almost got me, Doug. Damn.
You gotta have that cheat code.
Okay.
Man.
I know. So here we go. On October 10th, 1963, a man named Lee Harvey Oswald came to the attention of a group of senior CIA officers in Langley, Virginia. Okay, this is October 10th, 63. Oswald had recently visited the Cuban consulate and Soviet embassy in Mexico City, and a CIA wiretap captured a man identifying himself as Oswald. The CIA officers conferred about Oswald and his actions and signed off on a cable about him. They are identified on the declassified CIA cable whose authenticity is not disputed. So, we have on here, Assistant Deputy Director of Plans, Tom
Karamesins, yes.
Soviet Russia Division Counterintelligence Officer, Stephen Roll. Liaison Officer, Jane Roman. Special Projects Group Officer and editor, chief of the WH3 Desk Mexico.
Right.
We have John Scelso, also known as John Witten, and chief of operations for the Western Hemisphere, William J. Hood. And also one here on this document is J.C. King.
Yep. Now,
okay, and it says, why were they so interested in Oswald, right? And he said, on October the 8th, Win Scott, the chief of station in Mexico City, sent a cable to CIA headquarters seeking more information about this curious visitor. Who is Oswald, Scott asked. And on the afternoon of October 10th, the question was referred to a group of senior CIA officers, noted at the top of this memo, in the counterintelligence staff and in the Western Hemisphere Directorate. The people thinking about the obscure Oswald were not clerks, bureaucrats, or paper pushers. They were, for the most part, operations officers. That is to say, their primary responsibility was running covert ops. So, very interesting, Doug.
I know kind of what you're talking about. It seems to me, and a great resource for this is Bill Simpich's State Secret, that Oswald, or the Oswald figure showing up in Mexico City was a red flag that some operation had been breached. Probably more than likely, by the people that framed Oswald.
It set off alarm bells.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's why all the frantic cabling. That's why they worded the memo differently when they sent it, to the State Department, and they cut Cuba operations completely out of the loop.
Yep. No jam wave at all.
Right.
Either.
Because that's who they suspected of penetrating the operation that involved Oswald, because, in my opinion, he's not. Somebody knows he should not be in Mexico City. He should be somewhere else. Hence the alarm bells.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, guys. And I have good news, Rob.
Yes, sir.
You can watch this press conference on YouTube, dude. Live stream December 6th at 9.
For the low price of $6. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doug.
I think this one's free, the live stream here. I don't think you have to go through any paywalls to get to it. According to this presser I have, it's this press release. It says, watch the live stream on YouTube December 6th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. And it says, HTTPS, and I'm not reading all those. It's gigantic and it's long. You guys are just going to have to.
That's what she said.
Yeah. Now, if you want the QR code to attend the event in person, you can RSVP to info@maryfarrell.org. Again, guys, this is this Tuesday, National Press Club, Washington, D.C. Again, please sign on 15 minutes early to watch the YouTube thing, it says. And that is going on. Speakers will be Rex Bradford, John Tunheim, Fernand Armandi, Jefferson Morley, and remotely is Rolf Mowat Larson. Yeah, he's going to be speaking. For those of you who do not know who Mr. Mowat Larson is, he spent 23 years as a CIA operations officer in various domestic and international posts, including he's the former chief of the European division in the Directorate of Operations, and he wrote a book that pointed all the fingers at who was it?
Jake Esterline.
Jake Esterline, CIA's Jake Esterline, as the mastermind of the Kennedy assassination. So, guys, check that out. I'm going to watch. What about you, Rob? You going to try?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
An interesting fact, Doug, about David Christ.
Yeah.
He was Jesus's great grandson.
Well, you would
Just thought I'd
think
put that out there.
Well, you would think that he would have told Castro that. That might have gotten him some preferential treatment when he was in prison.
It might have.
If you can't play the Jesus card, dude, what? Man, when that won't get you a little, leeway, then wow, it's a harsh regime for sure. So guys,
turn a cigarette into a cigar. Watch me,
yeah. Well, Rob, I have another update. I have an update on the Dallas Morning News' plan to quote-unquote reimagine Dealey Plaza that we discussed on our and thanks to Joe Bax for sending us that press release so we can help get the word out about this thing next Tuesday at the National Press Club. But I have an update here, Rob. On the last episode we talked about this plan by the Dallas.
Hey, Doug.
Hey.
Is there a RIF number on that press release?
There is not a RIF number on that press release.
Damn it, Joe.
There's not a record number. There's not even a cryptonym on it.
We love you, Joe. We just busting your balls, buddy.
As we discussed, yes, we do. As we discussed on the last episode, Rob, Mark Lamster, the architect critic of the Dallas Morning News, came up with this giant plan with this bunch of architects to reimagine, redesign, rebuild, and turn into a memorial Dealey Plaza. Remember that. Well, guess what, bruh? They actually put this proposal to the people in Dallas, Texas.
Oh, Lord. Hopefully they squashed it.
Well, they had a little town hall meeting about it. And this is reading from the story now from the Dallas Morning News. An update by their writer, Michael Granberry, published on November 22nd of this year, the 59th anniversary of the assassination. Reading from the article, Mark Lamster, the architect critic for the Dallas Morning News, recently put forward an ambitious urban proposal articulated by a pair of prominent architects that seeks to reimagine and reawaken Dealey Plaza. The plan also calls boldly for uniting the plaza with Martyrs Park. Long known as the site of President John F. Kennedy's assassination, Dealey Plaza is, of course, the most potentially controversial. No subject in the history of Dallas has aroused more passion and curiosity than the murder of the nation's 35th president. It says here, on November 15th, the news convened a community conversation that posed the question of how best to portray where the crime occurred. Joining Lamster in the conversational exchange before a near-capacity crowd in the basement auditorium of the News Building on Commerce were renowned architects Chris Reed in Boston and Monica Ponce de Leon in Princeton, New Jersey. Also appearing was Nicola Langford, executive director of the 6th Floor Museum. One individual, John Mullen, 81, cited what appeared to be perhaps its most controversial element, the closing of Elm Street to traffic, calling it, quote, a real mistake, unquote. Get this. Mullen went so far as to say that Kennedy's wife, First Lady Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy, would have been, quote, offended to have the street closed. It should be left as it was on that day. Huh. What do you think about Mr. Mullen's assumption there, Rob?
Well,
offended?
I would say that's a giant assumation, and we all know what happens when you assume, making an ass out of you and me.
Yeah, really. I don't think you can. I don't think we can safely make that assumption. Now, you and I talked about that on the last episode. That of all the things about this proposal, that's like the one thing that makes sense.
Yeah, to close that section of Elm Street in front of the school book depository, down to the underpass at least, and just close it off. Just leave the street there, but close it off to automobiles.
Yep,
and put up some barriers or whatever the case, whatever you got to do, and just reserve that area forever.
And reroute traffic to Main.
Assholes in Dallas that want to erase their history that they're not very proud of. But it is what it is. It happened there, and I mean it could have happened anywhere, but it happened there. and it's not Dallas, Texas's fault. And like I said before, these historical places, the historical landmarks need to be preserved as much as possible to their identical, the way they were. It's time that all this happened, and Dealey Plaza changed a lot. It's undergone a facelift already,
Yep.
and to do something drastic, I hope that citizens of Dallas will rise up, and the people interested in the assassination will speak up and intervene on behalf of Mark Hamster and whoever that other guy was.
Yeah, the hamster. I still think that that's a good, and you know what, a lot of people in the research community I've noticed from, reading a forum or a comment section here and there are opposed to closing that down as to traffic, Elm, and I don't understand that. I noticed in the Deducation forum there was one person in there that was really upset, and they made the comment that when you drive that stretch of road, you get this like feeling, the sensation of driving past that spot, and that it's important that people not lose the ability to have that sensation of driving down the road where Kennedy drove. And come on, man, come on.
Here's a news flash for that guy. You get the same feeling when you're on foot in Dealey Plaza, dude.
Yeah. Now, wouldn't you think for if you're going to try to like a moment of reflection, if you're a researcher, if you or a historian or just an American, being able to stand in that spot and in a moment of quiet contemplation would be more profound than driving by it at 35 fucking miles an hour?
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, too, Doug. I know people might start saying, all right, here goes Rob. But, certain places, and I can think of a handful, where, extremely tumultuous and emotional events have taken place, like Gettysburg, Antietam, Dealey Plaza, in downtown in New York City,
the Lorraine Motel.
Where there's just
the Ambassador Hotel, yeah.
And I think that there's been so much of an emotional release and a trauma in that location that it's almost haunted in an aspect.
No doubt.
I'm not saying
no doubt.
I believe in ghosts and shit, but I'm saying I think that we don't know how time and all this stuff works, but it's all energy, and I believe that if the circumstances are right, and you're in the right place at the right time, then you can feel this energy from all this outpouring of emotion from all these individuals in one place at one time. And you don't have to be in a car on Elm Street to feel it in Dealey Plaza.
Amen. I'm with you. I don't understand that argument. Well, we need to be able to drive by there like the limo did. I'm like you, man. Dude, there's so much, like you said, emotional energy encapsulated in that little concrete canyon. Profound emotional energy that, being able to stand there without fear of getting, where that X is, where that spot is, to be able to stand in that spot, without fear of getting run the fuck over, would, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I don't know what this other person was, I don't know what the hell they're on about.
Listen, there's talking out of both sides of your mouth, then there's talking out your ass.
So we'll just dismiss that notion. But, I'm not in favor of this redesign. Please, everybody don't get me wrong. I'm not. I'm with Rob 100% on this. But it's not a bad idea to close traffic. That's actually a pretty good idea. But let's see. There were a couple of more notable. Now the pools. I don't know about the damn pools. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
They should leave the pools they have there already.
Well, these they want to put out when they close traffic. They want to put them in the middle of the road.
Yeah, no.
This is what it says here, guys. Reed, who's one of the architects, called for, quote, memorial pools to replace portions of Elm Street now marked by garish X's in the pavement to denote the spots where the bullets hit. We were out there this morning to walk the site again, and I must say it's heartbreaking to see these X's scrawled in the ground and then to see automobiles and trucks just simply passing over, which should be hallowed ground. Now, see, that goes back to what my point on closing traffic. You know? It's like, well, we need to be able to have that sensation. Well, does the guy delivering, the big truck delivering coffee to office buildings, the big fucking diesel truck, does he need that sensation? I don't think so. Hallowed ground. In my opinion, vehicles shouldn't be allowed to traverse there. Not after what happened to John Kennedy. Did I lose Rob? Are you still there, Rob?
Yeah, I'm here. I was
man.
saying, especially when you have two other roads that are going in the same direction right beside it.
Exactly.
Okay, close one. Shit.
Close one. I would love to be able to think. Can you imagine, like around the anniversary, like if it was closed, if just it was closed off to traffic around the anniversary conference time, walking around that section of Elm with like a meetup with researchers. I mean, that's what you want. You don't want to have to dart out there and,
I'm surprised nobody's gotten hit out there yet trying to take a selfie on the X with this school book depository in the background.
Dude, it's probably happened. I would bet. It's probably happened. But that guy, that sentiment, I know this is one of the dudes that wants to put the weird memorial pools out and all that shit, which it's in what they are is basically water, just a pool right there where the X's are. Shitty idea. But his sentiment, to see automobiles and trucks just simply passing over what should be hallowed ground. I'm 100% with him there. So if you don't do anything else, Dallas, if you don't do any of this other dumb shit, stop the traffic. Please stop the traffic. But like I say, no, what do you call it, Rob? No decision was made. No final decision on this.
Yeah, from the rumblings I hear, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. So hopefully it doesn't.
Hopefully it doesn't. So we wanted to give you you guys an update on that. They did present it to the people of Dallas to mixed reaction. The boomers, they want to keep it just like it is, apparently, in Dallas. And apparently the boomers know
Except for that 181-year-old crotchety asshole.
No, he's the one that wants, that's the boomer that wants to keep it like it is because Jackie Kennedy would want diesel trucks to drive over it every day. Yeah. So there you go. All right, Rob. So,
lovely.
And write letters, guys. Write letters to the city council or whatever in the hell. Emails, nice, polite but firm emails to the city council. Flood them. Tell them close traffic, but otherwise leave it the fuck alone. We need Lee Bowers Tower. We need Bowers Tower. It must stay.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Sorry about right. I had to get opinionated there at the end, buddy.
All good.
All right. Cool.
I'm in 100% agreement.
Hell yeah. We have an accord.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right, Doug.
All
I
right.
got something funky here. And I've actually been sitting on this for a while, and seems like the right time to remind everybody
All right.
why I'm here. Hey,
Why you're here?
this is actually why we're here. Why we are here.
Well, it's Saturday.
Yes. I mean, I can't think of the word that I want to use. Anyway, you'll understand what I'm talking about here when I read this comment.
Because I'm here because my father was a suave and debonair gentleman.
I'm here because my mom did not abort me.
Oh boy. Oh boy. See, guys, Rob
That's
is
a true
just
statement.
he's very sunny.
True statement.
He's very
Rob,
sunny today.
for those of you who did not know, Rob was adopted as a young baby.
He's Bob
So,
of
yeah.
Sunnybrook Farm over here today.
All right, yeah. I saw this post in a JFK group probably 2 years ago now.
Oh wow! So you've been
Yeah.
sitting on it 2 years. So like a year into Quick Hits, you found it.
Yep. And I know it was made by an individual by the name of, and I'll give him credit because I think this is a really good post. Israel Hadashi. Okay. It says, okay, so everyone keeps telling me I'm wrong. So just to be sure that I'm clear about what happened. Okay. Oswald
right.
buys some guns out of a magazine from another state, even though there was a huge sporting goods store and a bunch of pawn shops right down the street from his work. But why? For evidence that can lead back to him, of course. Then he decides to take a picture holding up the rifle in one hand and some incriminating documents to prove he's a communist terrorist in the other. Why? For evidence just in case he kills somebody important one day. Duh. Then he decides to kill the president. But instead of calling in sick and hiding in a different spot, this trained Marine decides to take that rifle to his job so that he can shoot the president from where? Not the roof, where he would have a better vantage and be better hidden, but from the corner of a sixth floor school book depository. And then this trained Marine.
I wonder how many seconds he passed up a face-on, head-on shot. God, 10, 15 seconds for that car to make those two loops?
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, instead of going to the roof, the seventh floor and into the roof, he chooses the sixth floor where he could be found by a random employees wandering about the building. Okay. And then this trained Marine, who clearly doesn't give a flying fuck about bringing his gun to work to assassinate the president of the United States from an open, visible window, decides not to take the clearest and easiest one shot as the president drives right past him, but instead waits for the worst time possible to take 3 shots. Then he magically zooms to the second floor in 1 minute and 20 seconds to buy a soda, but is greeted by another superhero that's a motorcycle cop capable of going from riding in the street to getting to the second floor in just 1 minute and 20 seconds. Wait.
Yeah.
Then Oswald buys his soda, and then he leaves. He goes from shooting the president to leaving his work in under 3 minutes. Talk about superpowers, but he isn't done yet, folks. Because somehow Oswald manages to walk 7 blocks through traffic and crowds of people, and in 5 minutes to catch a bus that's magically waiting for him. And the bus, which had no problem making it through the block streets, crowds of people, and presidential motorcade traffic, meets Oswald in perfect time, but suddenly gets stuck in all that traffic. It's so bad that Oswald can't even go a few blocks before deciding to get a bus transfer and get off. Why? So he can walk a few more blocks to catch a cab, which too happens to be magically waiting for him. So why did he get a bus transfer if he was going to take a cab? Why? For evidence, of course. Why else? Then he and his bus transfer get into the cab that has no problem making it through the same traffic or red lights and drive past his house, drop him off.
That's a great point. Yeah, man. For real.
It was drives past his house 7 blocks to drop him off so he can walk back to his rooming house and change. Oh, and to get a jacket to wear over his long sleeve flannel shirt because it's afternoon in the hot ass Texas sun. And of course to grab his trusty revolver, which for some reason he decided not to take to work with his rifle. Why? Because it makes no fucking sense. That's why.
Well, the driving past the boarding house, man, I think that was we're checking to see if the coast is clear. Move there. I think that's why he did that. And
why does he need his revolver now? So he can magically walk 10 blocks in 5 minutes to shoot a cop 4 times with a 6-shooter, then take his time to dump 4 shells for police to find along with his wallet so he can leave even more evidence and then go catch a movie.
That's another thing. Not having the gun. Not having the handgun, not having the revolver. If he had intentions of murdering John Kennedy with that rifle that day, you can bet your ass he's going to have that revolver with him as well. Why in the hell would he leave the pistol across town at home? Who in their right mind? Right?
Yeah. I mean, you got to think the shit might go sideways.
You might have to shoot
and you're
your
gonna
way
need
out.
to shoot your way out. Yeah.
Fucking
and
A, man.
You don't want to deal with a rifle.
I asked that I remember posing that query to a lone nutter years ago, back when I was still dumb enough to engage him. And his answer was, well, nobody said he was smart.
Yeah.
It's like, no, wait a minute. Lone nutters, he's a dumbass when they need him to be a dumbass, and he's smart as hell when they need him to be smart as hell.
Right.
Yeah. Uh-huh. That's the way that shit works. And that's called rationalizing your myth, is what that is. Anyway, I'm sorry, buddy. Go ahead.
All right. And he goes on to say, but for some reason, between the cop shooting and the movies, Oswald decides he needs to get rid of that fucking jacket. Of all the evidence he didn't give a fuck about, leaving any and everywhere, fingerprints, rifle shells, photos, receipts, transfers, it's the damn jacket that he can't risk getting caught with. Keeping the revolver and ammo is fine, but that damn jacket got to go. So he hides it under a car. Then he goes to the movies with money in his pocket, but because he's such a bad guy, he decides to sneak in and not pay. And the movie attendant who sees him calls the cops, the same cops that happen to be in the middle of searching for an assassin who just murdered the president of the United States. But when the cops hear about a movie sneaker, they decide to stop searching for the assassin and go handle that instead. Why? Because a movie sneaker is far more important and dangerous than a presidential assassin cop killer. And so naturally, the police race to the movie theater as fast as they can. But the cops somehow, the psychic feeling that the movie sneaker was also the assassin cop killer. Why would they? Maybe because their crimes are so similar. Who knows? But the cops aren't taking any chances, so they approach the movie sneaker with guns drawn. Then Oswald suddenly jumps from his chair, reaches into his jacket pocket for his trusty revolver, and yells, "This is it!" The cops are too fast for the movie sneaking assassin cop killer, and they catch Oswald's hand before he takes it out of his jacket pocket. Damn that jacket. If only Oswald had ditched it.
Ah, man, if only you could get rid of it.
Then Oswald takes a swing at a cop, misses, so they punch Oswald in the eye hard. Then they check his wallet, which the other cops found at the murder scene, to positively identify Oswald as the president of the cop-killing movie sneaker. And then Oswald gets arrested in the exact same clothes he wore to work after he went home to change. But how did the police know Oswald was the shooter? Because he left fingerprints everywhere, right?
Right.
No, that can't be it. Because in 1963, it took 3 weeks to 3 months to match fingerprints manually. So how did they know he was the assassin so fast? Maybe because Oswald ran into Officer Baker on the second floor 1 minute and 20 seconds after the shooting. No, that can't be it either. That proves it wasn't him. So how the hell did they know Oswald was the shooter so fast? Surely all that evidence would take more than a few weeks, if not months, to put together. So how in the hell did they know so fast? Magic, maybe? How could they charge him with shooting the president without any real evidence yet? Oh, that's right, because he was supposed to be. Well, that all certainly makes much more sense than a conspiracy. So I just thought that was a good post. That it's very meant to be sarcastic, folks.
So it fits in over here with us.
Yeah, it makes good sense.
It makes a lot of damn sense because it points out the nonsensical, the ridiculousness of the official story's narration of Oswald's movements and his actions and his motives.
Right.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you for
So
sharing.
to tie in with this.
Yeah.
So to tie in with this, I've got an interview with a fellow by the name of George Applin Jr.
Interesting that this is I don't know if I've heard of this name or not.
Okay. For 15 years, Doug, George Applin Jr. has remained silent about an experience which could have changed the outcome of the investigation of the assassination of President Kennedy.
Is that APLING?
No, APPLIN, Applin.
Okay, cool. Thank you,
He
sir.
was one of only 2 patrons in the Texas theater whom the Warren Commission could locate to testify about the arrest of accused assassin Lee Harvey Oswald. When authorities questioned Applin, he told them everything he knew about Oswald's arrest in the theater slightly over an hour after the assassination. What he didn't tell them, however, was that he recognized Jack Ruby as one of about 4 main floor theater patrons not identified by the Warren Commission.
No shit. So who do you think Oswald may have been on his way to meet?
Gee, I wonder. Here's what he has to say about it. He said, at the time the Warren Commission had me down there at the post office in Dallas to get my statement, I was afraid to give it, the Ruby information. Applin said, I gave everything up to the point of what I gave the police there in town. As police were about to pounce on Oswald, Applin said he spoke to a man whom he believes was Ruby sitting in a back row seat. Ruby was sitting down just watching them, Applin said. And when Oswald pulled the gun and snapped it at this policeman's head and missed, and the darn thing wouldn't fire, that's when I tapped him, Ruby, on the shoulder and told him he had better move because there's guns were waving around. He just turned around and looked at me. And then he turned around and started watching them again.
I'll be damned.
When police questioned Applin later that day, he couldn't have told them he saw Ruby because he didn't know him by sight at that point. He was just a random person to Applin. He didn't know who Jack Ruby was.
So
until
after
2
Ruby,
days later,
Ruby pops Oswald, and they have Ruby, and he, holy shit, that's the guy I saw in the theater when they arrested this guy. Kind of thing,
2 days later, after Ruby shot Oswald, his face became known to Applin and the rest of the world. 4 months later, Applin was to recall the Ruby incident under questioning by Warren Commission attorney Joseph Ball, but he still declined to identify the man as Ruby at that point. Ball had completed his examination when Applin said he had something more to say for the record. Applin, but there's one thing puzzling me. Ball said, what is that? Applin said, and I don't know if it has any bearing on the case, but there was one guy sitting in the back row there where I was standing at, and I said to him, hey, buddy, you better move, there's a gun. And he just sat there. He just sat back like this, just watching. And Ball asked Applin if he knew the man or had seen him since. Applin answered no twice, and the testimony was concluded.
Now, why did he?
I'm pretty nervous.
I wonder what's his explanation for declining to ID Ruby at that point?
I don't know.
Fear, maybe?
Yeah. He says, I'm a pretty nervous guy anyway, Applin said, because I'll tell you what, after I saw that magazine where all those people they said were kind of connected with some of this had turned up dead, it just kind of made me keep a low profile. The 36-year-old Grayson County concrete finisher, however, says he decided to talk about the Ruby incident because the passage of time has made it safer and more plausible for him to come forward. The Warren Commission in '64 asserted Ruby acted on impulse and shot Oswald, but the HSCA now indicates it has evidence showing Ruby was stalking Oswald.
Oh yeah,
at least one full day before he murdered him in the basement of City Hall.
100%.
The commission placed Ruby's arrival. Yeah, the commission placed Ruby's arrival in his downtown carousel club at 1:45 p.m. though. So how can he be at the theater and the carousel club, Doug? Does that make sense?
No, sir.
Well, we'll get there.
All right.
Which would rule out his appearance at the Texas Theater when Oswald was arrested between 1:45 and 1:50. Upon arriving at the Carousel Club shortly before 1:45, Ruby instructed Andrew Armstrong, the Carousel's bartender, to notify employees that the club would be closed that night. Warren report stated at 1:51 p.m., Ruby telephoned Ralph Paul in Arlington, Texas, to say that he was going to close his club. However, neither the time of Ruby's arrival nor a 1:51 p.m. call to Paul by Ruby is substantiated in Warren Commission testimony. Ruby testified, I went up to the club and I told Andy I said, call everyone and tell them we are not opening. Seconds earlier, he testified he could have. Seconds earlier, he testified he could have called my colored boy Andy down at the club. Armstrong testified Ruby called him at the club in about 15 or 20 minutes after the president was shot at 12:30 and said, if anything happens, we are going to close the club. He said Ruby walked into the club. I don't recall what time it was, about 5 minutes after Armstrong heard an announcement that Kennedy was dead. The president was pronounced dead at 1 p.m., but it was not publicly announced until shortly after 1:30. When Ruby arrived at the club, Armstrong said he didn't say anything, he just got on the telephone. Armstrong testified he called one of Ruby's strippers, Karen Little Lynn Carlin, in Fort Worth from the club at 1:45 to tell her the club would be closed that night. But he didn't say Ruby was there at the time. Larry Crayford, an employee at the Carousel who was with Armstrong at the club during the assassination, allegedly, said Ruby showed up about 2 or 2:30, about 2 hours after the assassination. Crayford said Ruby didn't tell Armstrong to notify performers that the club would be closed until 30 to 45 minutes after he arrived. When asked if Ruby made any phone calls, Crayford could only recall one that Ruby made to his sister, Eva Grant. Toll call records show that an 8-minute call was made from the Carousel to the home of Ruby's sister in Chicago, Eileen Kaminsky, at 2:05 p.m. Records also show a 3-minute call was made from the Carousel to a drive-in restaurant in Arlington owned by Ralph Paul at 1:51 p.m. However, Paul, one of Ruby's closest friends, testified Ruby called him for the first time that day after Paul had left the drive-in and gone home shortly after 2 p.m. He stated the call came at 2:45. Paul said Ruby called and asked him, did you hear what happened? Paul did set a 2-minute call at his home from the Carousel at 2:43 p.m. According to the toll records. This was 1 minute after someone from the Carousel had called his restaurant in somewhere. Did you hear what happened? Paul did get a 2-minute call at his home from the Carousel at 2:43. According to toll records, this was 1 minute. Okay, I already read that part. In Arlington, and apparently learned Paul had left for home. The Warren Commission timing of Ruby's arrival in the Carousel Club at 1:45 was used to dispute another suspicious sighting of Ruby at Parkland Hospital at about 1:30 when Kennedy's death was announced.
Yep.
The commission apparently believed Ruby when he said he wasn't at the hospital, although the source for the story was very credible. A reporter named Seth Cantor, a White House correspondent.
Right, and that was about
Ruby
what time?
From Cantor's earlier. What's that?
What? And that was about what time?
1:30.
1:30, and Oswald was arrested at what?
About 1:50.
1:50.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
he would have to have time to get over there.
Cantor said Ruby shook hands and called him by his first name. The commission said Cantor was probably mistaken because it doubted Ruby could have returned to his club from the hospital through congested traffic that fast. Cantor's story, which last year was retold in a book he wrote about Ruby, apparently has been accepted as fact by the House Assassinations Committee. If so, it doesn't rule out Aplin's sighting of Ruby at the Texas Theater shortly before 1:50. The news timed the 6.5-mile trip through heavy traffic flow from the hospital to the theater using Interstate 35 East and staying within the speed limit. None of the test runs took over 12 minutes. This would have permitted Ruby to travel from the hospital, if he was there, at 1:30, to the theater at about 1:45 without speeding. The 3.5-mile trip from the theater at 231 West Jefferson to the former site of the Carousel Club took 9 minutes at an average speed of 30 miles an hour. This would have given Ruby time to drive from the theater to his club and time to call his sister in Chicago at 2:05 p.m.
But would he have had time to get to the theater?
Yes. He would have had time to get to the theater. Yeah.
Okay.
And we get a little bit more from George Applin. He said, not think I saw Jack Ruby in the Texas Theater when Lee Harvey Oswald was captured. I touched him on the shoulder and told him to move. You're kidding. No, I'm not. It was 5 rows of seats back from him, Oswald, sitting right there against I guess that would be, there are 4 aisles in that thing. And you come in from the street and you walk up and you turn to your right, and that's the first one. You come up to the second one. He was sitting right in front, right in that front seat there, right by that partition, about 5 or 6 rows back. And after they had the scuffle there, and that motorcycle officer hit him in the back with a shotgun, I was standing there interested in finding out what the heck was happening.
I don't guess I'd ever heard that. That
when
Oswald
they
got
went
hit in the back
past-
with a shotgun.
Yeah. And when they went past there with him, they asked him, "Did you kill him?" And he said, "I didn't kill anybody." And when I looked at the last frame there, that silhouette of a man, it looked almost like him. But I didn't know at the time that it was Jack Ruby until I'd seen his picture on the dang news where he had blown Oswald's guts out. Since then, I've been moving about every 5 to 6 months because I'm scared. Does the Warren Commission know this? No, because at the time the Warren Commission had me down there at the post office, I gave up everything to the point of what I gave the police there in town. He said, I wouldn't even have known Ruby at the time. He said, did you know Ruby when Oswald shot him? Applin said, when I seen his picture on the dang news on TV, I sure did. I recognized him as the same man in the theater. In the theater, there were 2 people sitting together, one by himself and one sitting over on the far end by himself, myself and Jack Ruby. I believe there was about 6 of us sitting inside the show at the time. Because they had me, the guy that made the introduction when Oswald walked into the theater. And what I would like to know is how the heck he knew how suspicious he looked. But he was actually sitting in the theater when I came in, because I never did see him walk past me to sit down in front of me. When I guess somebody asked him when you came in, Oswald was already there, and he said, I believe so, because I never saw anybody walk down and get in front of me.
Okay, yeah,
They said, was Ruby already there? And he said, I don't know, because he was sitting behind me at the time. He could have came in any time.
And there have been reports that Oswald, that he moved a couple times, like he's looking for somebody. Like he sat next to a guy. Oh shit, that's not who I'm meeting, and he moved. Have you heard that? I've heard that as well.
Yeah. He said because when they turned the lights on and the officers started coming down, I was wondering what was happening. I was going up and asked the man at the candy counter what was happening. And at that time, when I got up past the second aisle, I seen the officer coming up, and I said, "Well, I better stop since he's checking everybody, because he'll want to talk to me too. I figure there might have been a burglary somewhere." And that's what they was looking for. He said Ruby was sitting down just watching him. And when Oswald pulled the officer's gun and snapped it at his head and missed, and the darn thing wouldn't fire, that's interesting. So when Oswald pulled the officer's gun.
I've heard that as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Unverified, that Oswald pulled the officer's gun.
Yeah, he said, that's when I tapped him, Ruby, on the shoulder and told him he better move because there was guns waving around. He just turned around and kept watching them. And then he says, a big, heavy-set plainclothes officer with a cowboy hat on asked Oswald, did you kill him? It looks like he was trying to knock a home run through his back. Laughlin said he told the Warren Commission attorney when referring to how the police hit him with a shotgun. So, God damn, they must have reared this shotgun back like a baseball bat and knocked the shit out of Oswald in the back.
Yeah, man. Well, to them, he's wanted for a murder of one of their own.
Right.
Yeah.
He said, no, Oswald didn't yell about police brutality inside the theater. What I said is what he said. The officer asked him why he shot the president, why he killed the president or shoot the president. And he said, well, I ain't shot nobody. The revolver that Oswald came up with came out of the officer's holster. Officer was about 5'11" or 5'10" and 210 or 220 pounds. He says, I'm a pretty nervous guy anyway, because I'll tell you what, after I seen that magazine where all those people they said was kind of connected with some sort of this come up dead, it kind of made sense to me to keep a low profile about what I knew. He says, I was in the third aisle, sitting about 7 rows down, almost in the middle section. He said, I seen his face, and there was just nothing about it. I believe he was wearing a suit, a dark suit. I know that much. What color? It could have been gray. It could have been a light blue. And he said it was a motorcycle patrolman that had hit Oswald with a shotgun. He said, I had no dealings with Oswald or Ruby, either one. And another thing, I didn't even vote for Kennedy. So it didn't bother me that somebody had shot him.
Oh, wow. That's a Walker acolyte right
Yeah.
there. One of Walker and Billy J. Hargis's probably listened to that H.L. Hunt radio show, whatever that was. Was it Lifeline or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably one of those guys.
And he says, Applin has agreed to take a polygraph test if we so desire. I told him I would check and let him know. A firm in town tells me it would cost about $200 to do. So, yeah.
Oswald
What do you
pulled
think
the
about
cop's gun.
that, Doug?
Well,
Yeah.
let's say Ruby is stalking Oswald because he's trying to kill him, right? And say that's part of it in the theater. You gotta think that when the guy told Ruby, hey, you better watch it. There's guns flying around, and Ruby's like, yeah, and I'm hoping one of them pops that guy so I don't have to. You know.
Or maybe he was just going to meet a contact there or meet Ruby for whatever reason. At that point, I don't know that.
Yeah,
things
Ruby
went
could have been
sideways yet.
Right. Ruby could very well have been his contact, and you know what General Edwin Walker said about them working together. He made the claim later that a lieutenant with the Dallas Police Department told him that the night somebody tried to kill him in his house, about midnight, that Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby were picked up by Dallas police, but Bobby Kennedy's Justice Department had them kicked loose.
Yeah,
So,
and the fact that there was 6 or 7 people in the theater, but we only know 2 of the other people's
Right.
names that were in there, that's a little sketchy.
that's very sketchy. And, hey, it's entirely possible, I guess. Ruby was over there to meet him. I don't
He's
know.
tight with the Dallas cops, and he was like, hey, boy, you boys know me, I got to go. See you later.
Yeah.
I didn't see nothing.
Yeah, you know me, right? I'm a good guy, right? Remember that. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
I bring you donuts and sandwiches.
Yeah, so I just thought that was interesting there, Douglas.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I appreciate you bringing that to us, man. Well, Rob, you want to take a little break here and then get into some more conversation, dude?
Surely.
All right, guys. Quick hits, number 39. We'll be back right after this. Hey, Doug here. Taking a minute to give you a heads up. An all-new issue of our favorite history periodical is dropping, guys, and that is issue number 11 of Garrison, the Journal of History and Deep Politics, from Midnight Rider News Publications at midnightridernews.com. That's writer with a W. Not a passenger on a horse, but one who commits language to paper. Midnight Writer, WRITER, news.com. This all-new issue, number 11, features a ton of articles from the realm of history and deep politics, such as John Brisson introducing us to the Finders, Ed Tatro on Lyndon Johnson and the Silver Star scam, William Weston on the CIA and the Texas School Book Depository, Jefferson Morley on Greenwald, Trump, and the JFK files, and of course our friend Larry Hancock on the RFK assassination. Also, Midnight Rider News founder S.T. Patrick on the independence of Tulsi Gabbard, and much, much, much more. That's issue number 11 of Garrison, the Journal of History and Deep Politics, from Midnight Rider News Publications, available at midnightridernews.com as of October 14th. Order your copy now. Go on, get. And we're back for part 2 of Quick Hits, episode number 39, JFK Assassination Research, News and Notes with Rob Clark and Doug Campbell. That's me, and here's Rob. Hey, Rob.
Hello, Doug. Yes, this is I.
This is I. This is
Bad
he.
Bob.
Dude, during the promo break, I went outside, the temperature's fallen about 10 degrees. And that while we were recording that first part, that quick. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I can believe it.
Oh, man, wintertime. Well, hey, Mr. Rob, as we discussed in our October episode, and as we discussed earlier in this one, the deadline for the Biden administration to release in full the remaining JFK assassination records is coming up soon. It's December 15th. What is your prediction, sir? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, given Biden's illustrious track record and efficiency of things, I'm going to say that the can will get kicked down the road again, and we might get a couple more bullshit things. But I still think we're going to see them all here in a couple weeks. That's just my gut feeling.
The can's going to get kicked down the road, Rob says. Well, you know what? I don't know what to think, but I tend to probably agree with you. It'll probably get kicked down the road. Hopefully, this lawsuit from NARA will get us a little bit of relief. But, Rob, Philip Shannon, author of the book A Cruel and Shocking Act. Have you read that book?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, he's sort of a Warren Commission apologist, isn't he?
Somewhat.
Well, you know,
yeah, for some reason I want to think that he's I don't know, maybe thinking of somebody else, but I was wanting to think that maybe he was a Harvey and Lee guy, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't think he is. His book. It's been a long time since I've read it, but my gut feeling is that he is a Warren Commission apologist in the book. He, a lot of things that we do not believe, as far as the Warren Commission goes, he put forth as fact in his book. So. But I'll say this, right. and I, again, it's been a while since I've read the book, but he's not known as someone who's thoroughly on our side. But he wrote a great article, guys, that I wanted to pass on to everybody. It was published in Politico 1 week before the recent anniversary of the assassination, and it's a bit interesting. It was published on 11/15/22, the 15th of November, and it's titled "Why We Still Don't Have the JFK Assassination Files." I want to read a little bit from you now. Philip Shannon writes, almost exactly 59 years after those rifle shots rang out in Dealey Plaza, left a president mortally wounded and changed the course of history, there are still secrets that the government admits it is determined to keep about the November 1963 assassination of President John Kennedy. More than 14,000 classified documents somehow related to the president's murder remain locked away in part or in full at the National Archives in clear violation of the spirit of a landmark 1992 transparency law that was supposed to force the release of virtually all of them years ago. Shannon writes, newly released internal correspondence from the National Archives and Records Administration reveal that behind the scenes there has been a fierce bureaucratic war over the documents in recent years, pitting the archives against the CIA, FBI, and other agencies that want to keep them secret. The correspondence obtained under the Freedom of Information Act show that the archives has tried and failed to insist that other agencies comply with the 1992 law by declassifying more documents. The struggle was especially fierce in 2017 when then-President Donald Trump sided with the CIA and FBI and agreed to waive a supposedly concrete legal deadline that year to release all classified documents regarding the JFK assassination. So I think this is a nuance, Rob, that some people miss, that a lot of us miss, and that is maybe the impression that the archives see, and it's my impression, I think the archives would prefer to be compliant with the law, but the executive branch and government agencies with stuff to hide will not allow it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but the archives itself had a lot of problems as well when it comes to how they there's just a lot of missing documents and stuff filed in the wrong places and things that should be released that aren't available for whatever reason. And that's all in the archives. So I think they're both at fault here.
Yeah, but I do get the feeling that there's part of the archives would prefer to be able to go ahead and release everything. That they kind of don't have a dog in the hunt as far as the hidden information goes. That they would be compliant with the law if they were allowed. Now I know a lot of what's going on in the Mary Farrell Foundation lawsuit is a lot of things there's a lot of things they haven't done. I'm not saying that they should have been by law, but I think that a lot of the stuff they would release if they were given the green light. I'm saying, I guess. But now I've never heard about this internal correspondence that was released. Going on about that, Mr. Shannon writes, the internal correspondence from the archives helps resolve one lingering mystery about the documents. In their negotiations with the White House and the archives in recent years, how have the CIA, FBI, and the Pentagon and other agencies justified keeping any secrets about a turning point in American history that occurred decades ago, an event that has always inspired corrosive conspiracy theories about governmental complicity? Some of those theories, Rob, I would go as far as to say were corrosive, wouldn't you?
A couple of them.
Couple of them, yeah. In the past, those agencies have provided the public with only vague explanations about their reasoning, citing potential damage to national security and foreign policy. The archives correspondence reveals for the first time their detailed justifications, providing a rare window into reasoning inside the CIA and FBI. In many cases, it shows the CIA and FBI pressed to keep documents secret because they contain the names and personal details of still living intelligence and law enforcement informants who could be at risk of intimidation or even violence if they were publicly identified. Now, Rob, I don't want to. It's not our place to name this person publicly, I don't think, but for these very reasons, you know, that they outlined before. But you and I, and you caught it, but there was an individual who was an extremely prolific FBI informant inside the anti-Castro community who was not afforded this this protection. It seems as if they let his name out accidentally, you know? We've
accidentally on purpose, yeah.
You think it was on purpose?
Had to be.
I don't know how they missed it. I mean, and to the backstory, guys, is that in FBI documents, there's an informant who is on, Jesus, I bet 10, at least the number of pages this person generated is 5 figures amongst JFK assassination records. Wouldn't you agree, Rob?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that many. And, you know, again, here, as Mr. Shannon writes, the CIA and FBI pressed to keep documents secret because they contain the names and personal details of still living intelligence and law enforcement informants. And this individual is still living. He was most assuredly an FBI informant with a number, 3 numbers dash and a letter designation and everything. And a document got out. And those two, his name and the number together, it wasn't redacted. And Rob noticed it, and we let him know. I don't know if he ever got the message. Hey, dude, look, this happened. But you know what? It gets out. It does happen. This guy was not afforded the cover that the they normally.
Hi, Howard.
Oh, wow. Most of those sources, now elderly, if not close to death, Mr. Shannon writes, are foreigners living outside the United States, which means it would be more difficult for the American government to protect them from threats. The CIA has also withheld information in the documents that identifies. Okay, wait a minute. Before we get to that sentence, let me back up to this last one. Rob, where it says, which means, Shannon writes, which means it would be more difficult for the American government to protect them from threats. Now, I kind of see that reasoning, okay? We know that a lot of paramilitary civilians who were financed by and engaged in CIA's covert wars, they are very passionate individuals, right? Well, if you find out that, you know, an individual was responsible for, and this is a total hypothetical, but let's say that a raid somebody spilled the beans about a raid, right? And word got back to customs. This person gets busted. They get a prison sentence for violating the Neutrality Act, and they get into a scuffle in prison, and they're stabbed in prison, right? Well, if you're like a cousin of that individual or something like that, and you find out in these files that, well, this is the guy that informed customs about the CIA raid, and he's still alive, you know what I mean? I kind of get that reasoning. Like, if they're still alive, you kind of need to, if they were involved in shady shit for us, they are at risk. Or am I off base there?
I don't think at this point anybody's at risk.
Fair enough. Hell yeah. Now, this next location, check out this next sentence. The CIA has also withheld information in the documents that identifies the location of CIA stations and safe houses abroad, including several that have been in use continuously since Kennedy's death in 1963. So they're using the same safe houses for 60 years?
Yeah, that's a little unbelievable to me.
Okay. That's way unbelievable to me, you know.
I mean, I would say that if they have been doing that, then I would assume by this point that other intelligence agencies know exactly where these safe houses are.
Probably. You know, if you're using one for 60 years, how many hundreds and hundreds of people have passed through them and know where they're at and know it's a safe house?
Right.
You know, it's not very safe. I guess that's our point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Many not very safe houses. Mr. Shannon writes, in fact, the correspondence shows the overwhelming majority of the documents that the FBI has withheld from the public in recent years somehow involved organized crime investigations. Of the nearly 7,500 documents that the FBI kept classified at the time of the 2017 deadline, 6,000 were, quote, various files of members of organized crime or La Cosa Nostra. The majority of them are mob files on the FBI side. The DEA made a special plea to blank out the names of 6 confidential informants identified in assassination-related files involving organized crime investigations. Given the well-documented propensity for violence by the mafia, it is reasonable to expect the individuals, if alive, remain in significant danger of retaliation for their assistance. See, that's what I'm saying. And then our friend Larry Schnapp makes an appearance in the article, Rob. He talked, Mr. Shannon talked to him about it. And Mr. Schnapp, for his part, reports that Mr. Shannon is very fair and seems to be on our side with this whole thing. But Mr. Shannon writes, the internal correspondence and emails from the archives were provided to Politico magazine by Larry Schnapp, a New York lawyer who filed, along with Bill Simbich, a federal lawsuit last month against President Biden and the National Archives demanding release of the assassination documents. Even though he's now suing the National Archives, Schnapp said in the interview he was impressed by the aggressiveness of archive officials in trying to force the CIA, FBI, and other agencies to abide by the 1992 law. Now, he goes on to say, guys, that some files declassified as a result of the 1992 law strongly suggest that the CIA's, Rob, what did we start out talking about? Check this out. That the CIA's Mexico City station covered up evidence of its aggressive surveillance of Oswald during his mysterious trip to the Mexican capital. According to a bare bones index at the archives, several of the still classified assassination documents are drawn from the files of the U.S. Embassy in Mexico, the CIA station in particular. See, there you go.
There you go.
The Defense Department, for its part, told the archives in 2018 that it would continue to black out portions of 256 classified Pentagon documents since they identify, quote, active U.S. war plans, foreign government information, sensitive nuclear weapons information, and U.S. prisoner of war personal and debriefing information. What? Why would sensitive nuclear weapons information be assassination records? It's nonsensical.
It has something to do with JFK, like with Dimona and Israel. And
yeah, but even then, why would they be assassination records, though? You know?
Unless it was just directly related to Kennedy in particular.
I guess, man. I guess. In a memo in August of 2017, William J. Bosanko, Chief Operating Officer of the National Archives, protested the FBI's decision to continue to withhold the names of confidential sources from the 60s. Check this out, especially those that came directly out of the case files on Oswald and Ruby. Bosanko, the archives official overseeing the project, said in an interview that the recent interagency review of JFK documents had been the most intensive in decades, a page-to-page inspection, with agencies pressed to justify why any information, including names and addresses, should continue to be withheld from the public. We looked at every single redaction in the documents, he said, and they are continuing to negotiate with the CIA. See, that's a big problem. There should be no damn negotiating with them. It's the fucking law. It's the fucking law. Right, Rob?
That's right.
Yeah. And no matter what Biden decides, Shannon writes, about 500 documents and other items in the collection will always remain secret, since the 1992 law exempts them from the public release. Among them are documents produced by federal grand juries and by the Internal Revenue Service, including the tax and employment records of Oswald, Ruby, and many of their associates. Now, what do you think about that, folks?
Well, let me also say this, Doug. Let me add this.
Yeah.
You know, when the ARRB was, in play, and all these various organizations were required to produce their assassination-related records, we're relying on the FBI and the CIA,
yeah,
to let them know what are assassination-related records. That's why these 44 files on George Ioannidis are not included in this release. They were never declared as assassination-related records,
which we know that they are. Let's face it.
Sure they are.
I mean,
sure they are.
Let's face it. Yeah.
But unless the CIA says, "Hey, these are assassination-related records," things like the Ioannidis file, that just happened. There just happened to be, a leaked record sometime 25 years ago that Jefferson really picked up on that this guy in a precarious position to know a lot of what was going on down there in New Orleans with the DRE and things of this nature and Dame Wave.
And now we know he's cleared. Suddenly he's cleared for knowledge of the Mexico City wiretap operation. So, man, dude, Joanides, this really puts him kind of in the catbird seat because the DRE thing on one end, and see, that's, to me, dude, that's huge. What you brought up, what you pointed out, that now that we know he was cleared for knowledge of the Mexico City thing, that throws him in, like I said, man, it makes him suddenly, he's a much better suspect than he was to me previously. Just like you said.
Right.
And it's, those records are absolutely damn assassination records. And we
this
need to
guy
see
was
them.
in charge of being the CIA liaison to the House Select Committee on Assassinations, and as far as getting them the records that they requested.
Yeah.
So,
Alan Dale told me that story. He said that Dan Hardway told him, that basically the way that worked out was, well, we want to see the file on this guy and this guy, and then the Joanides would go, okay, and then they literally tell George Joanides, we need to know who the case officer was for the DRE in the summer of 1963. And Joanides says, I'll look into it. And
right.
of course, they never heard anything. And it turns out it was George Joanides, But,
it sounds to me like there's a reason the guy was in the position he was in, HSCA.
Yeah.
And that would protect information at all costs. And I think it's important what Orley is doing, trying to get his files released. And hopefully he does, because I think there'd be some very interesting stuff in those files, Doug.
Absolutely. I think you're exactly right. Wrapping up with Mr. Shannon, Rob, he points out that among the 500 documents and other items that will remain secret because they were exempt from public release with the 1992 law include tape recordings of 6 interviews conducted in 1964 with Jacqueline Kennedy, former Attorney General Robert Kennedy, by journalist William Manchester. Those tapes were turned over to the archives by the Kennedy family in exchange for an agreement that they would not be made public until 2067, the 100th anniversary of the publication of Manchester's book, The Death of a President. The law also exempt from public release of what the Archives Index described as 5 very personal letters that Mrs. Kennedy wrote to President Johnson, including at least 3 she sent to him in the week after the assassination. We will never, ever read those unless they leak.
Wow.
Yeah. 100 years.
Well, even we'll be dead by then.
The recordings that Manchester made in 64 with Jacqueline Kennedy and Robert Kennedy, that's 103 years before they can be released. What?
That's crazy.
Man, it makes you wonder what the fuck kind of profundity are in those letters. I
don't know. True thoughts and feelings, probably.
Yeah. Probably unfiltered, uncensored. Their first impressions.
Or nothing at all.
I don't know, man. 100 years, that's...
Well, you would think if there was anything juicy in there that Manchester would have put in his book.
Well, unless he was just
requested not to.
Yeah, and he's just a stand-up guy and decided not to, But I'm sure that he didn't have the final say in the final edit of that book. I wouldn't imagine.
No.
He was hired to put that together. 100%.
Yeah.
All right. So, hey, thank you, Mr. Shannon, for the interesting article. Kennedy that'll get us a demerit at K and K or whatever that K and K thing is. We'll What's that? Yeah, but for, complimenting Philip Shannon. That'll get us a demerit over there. But, interesting article. Great article. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
All right, Doug, you want to talk about Marina?
Oh, man, I always love talking about Marina.
Now, Marina hasn't been in the public eye, I believe, since the early 90s. Okay. And there's a reason she stopped coming forward and being involved and being interviewed and all that jazz, right?
Yeah.
So one of her last, these publicly known communications was to the JFK Assassination Records Review Board in April of 1996. And she wrote them a letter, and basically she says, I'm writing to you regarding the release of still classified documents related to the assassination of President Kennedy and to my former husband, Lee Harvey Oswald. Specifically, I'm writing to ask about documents learned of from a recent book and from a story in the Washington Post by authors of the same book, as well as other documents they ascribed to me. The book reviews Dallas police, FBI, and CIA files released since 92 and places them in the context of previously known information, and I would like to know what the review board is doing to obtain the following. And she was about listing a series of, I believe it's 10 or so documents. And I believe she's talking about two specific books here, and one is from James Hosty entitled Assignment Oswald, and the other is, I can't remember the name of it offhand. It was written by a man and a woman.
I would be interested to know what Marina's personal feelings, personal opinion of James Hosty was or is.
Right. Anyway, she's asking about like the records of the FBI interrogations of John Franklin Elrod, John Forster Jedney, and Harold Doyle. The latter were previously known as two of the three tramps in Dallas jail, November 22nd through the 24th. All these men have stated that they were interrogated during that time by the FBI. And this is not just their police arrest report. Okay, they were interrogated by the FBI. We don't have those records.
Yeah.
The records of the interrogation of Lee Harvey Oswald, including his interrogation in the presence of Franklin Elrod, as described by Elrod in an FBI report dated August 11th, 1964. And she's asking about gun runners, John Thomas Mason, Donnell Witter, Lawrence Miller, Jack Ruby. And she goes on, she's asking about all kinds of stuff, man. So,
see, man, yeah, dude, that whole story, the John Thomas Mason, those gun runners, that got in the high speed pursuit and all that shit, and their ties to Ruby and possible ties to Oswald. That's a hell of an interesting story. And I talked about it a little bit on a show, maybe last year before, something like that, of the Dallas action. And that story that not near enough work has been done on all that, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
And she closes out the letter by saying this, the time for the review board to obtain and release the most important documents related to the assassination is running out. At the time of the assassination of the president who I loved, I was misled by, quote, evidence presented to me by government authorities, and I assisted in the conviction in the minds of the public of Lee Harvey Oswald as the assassin. From the new information now available, I'm now convinced that he was an FBI informant and believed that he did not kill President Kennedy. It's time for Americans to know their full history. On this day, when I and all Americans are grieving the victims of Oklahoma City, I guess it was Oklahoma City bombing, she said, I'm also thinking of my children and grandchildren and of all American children when I insist that your board is the highest priority to the release of the documents I have listed. This is the duty we're charged with by law. Anything else is unacceptable, not just to me, but to all patriotic Americans. Please be advised that this is an open letter, and I intend to make it available to anyone who wishes to see it. The time for secrecy in government is over, and I ask that you respond to me in writing within 2 weeks, and we'll take no further action until then. Thank you for your attention to my request. Sincerely, Marina Porter. And
well, I agree with her 100%. I don't think Oswald killed anybody, and I think he was an FBI informant. He was a PSI.
yeah.
Man,
She also CC'd on this letter Representative John Coyers, Representative Gingrich, Representative Henry Gonzalez, Representative Lee Hamilton, Representative Joseph Kennedy, Senator William S. Cohen, Senator Edward Kennedy, Senator Bob Kerrey, Senator John Kerry, Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, and Senator Arlen Specter. Interesting.
Well, good for her.
All right, so here's the second letter, Doug, that she wrote to the Assassination Records Review Board on September the 17th, 96, approximately 5 months after her first. She says, on April 19th, I sent a letter to Mr. John Tunheim, chairman of the Assassination Records Review Board. I requested certain documents listed in the letter. I received a letter from Mr. Thomas Samelet, public relations director, in which he more or less politely brushes me off. He describes the opinion of the FBI, how I stand on the matter, which is nothing new to me. I took it as a refusal. The letter did not indicate who they talked to at the FBI, the reasons for the refusal, if the document exists or never existed, if they are destroyed, and if so, why. I want to know the answer. On May 15th, 96, the ARRB sent me a description of what powers they actually have under the law. My assumption is that the taxpayers are paying them, that they have the power of subpoena for any record related to the assassination of President Kennedy. In my opinion, the records I requested from them are assassination related. They imply Lee Oswald's involvement with the FBI. Until we see these records, we can only speculate. Beyond the release of these documents, the ARRB should subpoena FBI employees who have seen records on Lee Oswald and of a specific warning of assassination attempt against President Kennedy in Dallas, and grant these FBI employees immunity from confidentiality agreements that we now know they signed. These persons should be allowed and encouraged to tell everything they know. When I came to the country, I came as a friend. I was then and am now. When the assassination happened, I believed it was my obligation, anybody's obligation, to abide by the law of this land. I testified to the Warren Commission, and I obliged with any request the government made of me. I agreed with the findings of the Warren Commission, not because I really understood everything about it, but because I had enough trust they investigated honestly, and that the conclusions they came to were based on the highest form of investigation. So, by blind faith, I accepted their conclusions. Of course, at the time, lots of people in this country who knew more about what was going on questioned the findings of the commission. I defended the commission against those people, and I wanted all those so-called conspiracy people to just go away. Then there was a second investigation because the people demanded it. This was the investigation of the U.S. House Select Committee, and I also testified for them. And their conclusion was possible conspiracy, meaning that the assassination involved more than one person, and they stopped it at that.
Actually, what they ruled was probable conspiracy, not possible.
Right, probable conspiracy, yeah. Even then, I wasn't very pleased. I wasn't very pleased because when I was testifying for them, and I thought they were honest after so many years, and because the people demanded, I asked them questions that would be answered just for me, and I was told that I was there only to answer questions and not to ask them. So I knew that the investigation was doomed. And how can I expect the conclusions of the House Select Committee, or how can I respect the conclusions of the House Select Committee when they locked up their records? I gave the two investigations everything I had. Then later I found out the FBI knew more about me than I knew about myself. Literally, even my underwear was investigated. Smell that, Doug?
Do what, Rob?
I said, you smell that?
Actually, I do. Yes, sir.
Smells like potatoes and vodka.
It smells like an almond joy.
And I have no problem with that.
You have no problem with that. That's actually not a bad smell. An almond joy is a pleasant smell. Coconut, milk chocolate, almonds.
Yes.
Who
They
doesn't
didn't
like
have
those
to
two?
trust me. They didn't have to trust me.
They didn't
Why
have
should
to.
they?
Right.
I don't hold anything against that. But my private matters were investigated, even when they had all the proof that I was nobody's, quote, spy. And I feel that this was, in all caps, for blackmail purposes. My house was bugged. I was surveilled. And I saw pictures of me, which I knew nobody but the FBI could have done.
Now that's creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen with my own eyes that any kind of gossip from people, even remotely related to me by name in Russia, had any kind of nonsense is in the record. You cannot be more thorough than that. And even so, I don't object. But now I think it's my turn to ask the questions and for the FBI to clean their own laundry. I don't want to know everything about the FBI, but since they claim that I am wife of the assassin and I have to defend myself, only in that regard am I sticking my nose in their business. I'm not begging for answers. I think I've earned them, and I think to give them to me. After the reply to my letter from the review board, a woman who said she is with the ARRB left her number for me to call, which I never did. They wanted the tax records of Lee Harvey Oswald. I did not sign the IRS release from the review board sent for one simple reason. Because I thought the priority would be the release of records which I requested. In my opinion, I think the tax records are irrelevant to the assassination. Mr. Jeremy Gunn of the review board called me a week ago and said, I'm so-and-so. How come you didn't sign these papers? And I said, I have no problem signing these forms, but I told you I've requested those documents, and this is my priority. So you do this job right now. Put your energy over there. Mr. Gunn said yes, that they did approach the FBI, and the FBI is stonewalling them. And so we're approaching you, and you're not helping us. And I said, well, how is it related to what I'm asking? I have no problem releasing my tax records, and I will agree to have them released to journalists who will publish them. This will eliminate the problem of having them public, but this is not related to my request. There will be no enlightenment having them public, but there will be no enlightenment there for me. I will not find anything there at all. Mr. Gunn said, well, would you be more comfortable if Mr. John Newman talked to you about this? And I said, I'm familiar with Mr. Newman, and I've talked to him, but I don't want to talk to him anymore.
Well, John Newman, he could be a little abrupt. Nice guy, great guy. Loved having him on the show, but he's a little abrupt.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, career military guy. He's got that bearing for sure. Like I say, when he
very stern.
Yeah, pretty stern. When I had him on the Dallas action, I felt like a couple of times I felt like that political science student and the professor's not happy with him. Not at all. No.
She continues, the review board is going to be closing soon, and time is very limited. They should concentrate their priority on things that can shed light rather than on things that create more controversy, more stupid books, leading away from the answers instead of giving the answers, it seems to me. My priority should be considered not because I'm important, but because I'm the one who has to live with them. It's a very personal agenda in my life. If the records reveal an FBI informant in the assassination, I want to know the name of that informant. And I don't want to have one dead man's name substituted for another. I absolutely believe that Lee Oswald was the informant on the arrest of Lawrence Miller and Donnell Witter, November the 18th, 1963.
That whole story, dude, there's not enough work's been done on that whole story about those gun runners that got popped in Dallas. That particular little encapsulated incident, I think there's more to it than that, and I think it involves Oswald and Ruby.
Yep,
she's right on. She's onto something there. Marina is.
Yeah. After the assassination, the puzzle of Lee Oswald did not fit for me. But for Lee to be an informant makes everything logical to me, specifically the behavior of Lee Oswald and the time leading up to the assassination. All that strangeness didn't come from a crazy lunatic. That was his mission, a secretive mission. I would like to be wrong, but if I'm right, I want an apology to me and to the American people. After 27 years, I consciously made the choice to become an American citizen. Of course, my heritage was never betrayed when I took alliance to the American Constitution and tried to pronounce this country as my home, only to find out that 33 years later, I have nothing but an address. I have lived in two different systems which were built differently. Slowly and surely, the names are different, but I still feel oppressed when I have to struggle for every piece of paper. Every time I asked for documents, I'm intimidated and gave the media the power to throw insults at me and my children when they don't have the facts. Lee Oswald's face is on a dartboard. Comedians make jokes so freely without knowing the facts that is embedded in the people's psyches now. And we have the ex-president of the country, Gerald Ford, and for millions of people, calling a man never convicted of the crime that loony, that lunatic, with no facts to back it up. I am listening, and I know. But who's going to believe me? They're going to believe the authorities. So many careers, including media careers, have been made hiding behind dead Lee Harvey Oswald. If those people came forward and told the truth, they would never have those positions for one day. And that's my bitter opinion. It's my turn. Whatever few years are left in my life, I want to live them. I'm tired of bare existence. I want also to say I'm not anti-government. I'm not revolutionary. I'm not communist. I want to believe in this government. That entity should exist to help people and not to abuse them. Someone can try to restore the confidence of people in the government, and it has to start somewhere. The government are servants of the people, and they should be honorably served. The public trust should not be discarded that easily. The review board has been empowered by the people, and I thought that was the government. Apparently it's not. So we don't have a leadership, we just have a ruling. Why bother with the Constitution? We should have stayed a colony of England. I can empower that review board. I cannot make them to act dishonestly or cowardly. This is up to their conscience. To quote something that I hope will give them a little bit of strength and bravery, and it's from the Declaration of Independence. And it states, and for the support of this declaration, with the firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our life, our fortune, and our sacred honor. I am sure that most Americans feel that way. I think the same thing is expected from the government. Patriotism should not be used for the gains of a few. That is when dishonorable things happen. I definitely think that Lee Oswald did not kill President Kennedy. I think he was given up to pacify people as a patsy. I don't think he was the first one, or the first one we know about. And he was not crazy. If he was crazy, how come I have normal, intelligent children with varied convictions? The thing that bothers me the most is that you teach your children the difference between right and wrong, give to the best of your abilities how wonderful the country is, how honorable it is to live here, and I no longer believe this myself. I'd be lying to you if I say that. And I don't believe, and if I don't believe it, I can tell it to my children or grandchildren. I cannot disappoint them. I have to believe first. I look at my grandchildren, I look at those eyes and say to myself, what do I have to leave for you? You can leave money, which I don't have. You can leave fortune, but most of all, you can leave your children a decent society to live in. And I'm not the one who thinks that everything should be perfect tomorrow. There will always be stupid people, crazy people, lazy people, and crime will always be there. But the government and ruling bodies are supposed not only to set up standards for us, but to set up an example as well. And then maybe we'll have the kind of balance in society so goodness can survive. All documents which can expose that a man accused wrongly should be opened. I believe the documents I requested will be eye-openers. After that, time is still left. I think a law should be put on the books that if a man is accused of murder and is dead before a trial is held, that crime should never be closed, and the family should be able to defend itself from accusations.
Yeah, she's 100%
This case was
right.
never even opened. Yeah. This case was never even opened.
Yeah.
26 volumes of the Warren Commission do not support its conclusions. My final conclusion is that the man, Lee, was not on the 6th floor. We're not even sure about the rifle. According to the local police chief, we could never put that rifle and that person, Oswald, together.
Amen to that. Amen to that. She's 100% right.
Yeah. Lee was charged with the crime. They showed him a picture, said, "This is a rifle, this is you," and he denied it. But they never showed him the weapon for identification. I'm the one who was supposed to identify the rifle, which I did, believing in the authorities' good intentions.
Yeah.
But I was the worst of all. I knew nothing of weapons or guns. I knew nothing.
But is she denying taking the photograph now? Who knows?
It would seem like it.
It would seem like it. Yeah. Doesn't it? In 96.
Yeah.
She's saying they showed me the photograph. She hasn't mentioned that I took it.
Right. Now I have to defend not just my honor, but my life as well. It is impossible for me to put my time where it belongs, be a normal wife, mother, grandmother. But I finally know the documentary evidence that I have to demand, not beg, that this information be released. This evidence was itemized in my letter to Mr. Tunheim and the ARRB. Why has this evidence been ignored? Thank you, and please forgive my English. Very sincerely, Marina Oswald Porter. P.S. # go fuck yourself.
Well, hey, you know what? That tells me that me and Marina would get along just fine. If that's the way she closed that letter, then her and I would get along just fine. But yeah,
I may have embellished the last part.
May have. Well, you know, the whole thing there with Donnell Whittier and those gun runners that they believe they wrecked the car running from the cops, kind of thing. I can firmly believe, I mean, it's entirely within the realm of possibility that Oswald was the FBI informant that resulted in their arrest. I think she may be onto something again. I don't think enough has been done in that area yet. It's a very intriguing story, Rob. Very intriguing. Rob, I got bad news, buddy. This electronic interference. Now we're going to let the listeners in on some inside baseball. We seem to be experiencing some electronic interference along our Skype channel, and producer Momo and 2 other engineers, Rob, can't quite figure out where this interference is coming from right now. And the inside baseball guys that's the 3rd time Rob read that letter. Do the magic.
And I'm not going to read it again. So.
He's not going to read it again, but apparently it's a Skype thing, dude. It's not any of the components here at the studio. So, according to
bear with us.
Yeah, bear with us. So, I was wondering, Rob, it seems to be kicking in there over the Skype. Do you want to save the emails we have for our next episode in January, considering the unprecedented amount of electronic interference that we seem to be seems to be occurring in the second half of this episode? What do you think?
Well, we only have one, so I think we can hammer it out. Just request the listeners bear with us, and we deeply apologize, and get through this one email and wrap things up.
You know what it sounds like?
Hopefully,
it sounds like off in the distance somebody has a garage door opener remote. And they're opening it like 4 inches at a time off in the distance. Me. That's what it sounds like. Yeah. Todd, the engineer, he's nodding at me. That's exactly what it sounds like. But we've been working diligently and retaping, Rob, and retaping things for the listeners, trying to get this sounding what we don't go through for you guys, right, Rob?
That's right.
All right, so we got one email, so bear with us through the interference, guys, and we'll get this email out to you and answered for the dear. Oh, wait a minute! I almost forgot the damn our music. Shit, what am I doing? Almost. I apologize. Emails.
Oh yes, wait a minute, Mr. Bozeman. Wait.
All right, what you got there, Rob?
Well, let me scratch the sides of my sack here and see if I can find this one only email in here. Man, it's very elusive. Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm very disappointed. Very disappointed this time, Doug. We have one email. Come on, guys.
Well, I would be if we did if this interference, this electronic interference wasn't going on. But I'm kind of glad.
Yes, Joe, we're highly disappointed you didn't get in on time this go around, but please have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and get your goddamn emails into us as soon as possible.
Hey, disclaimer, it's entirely possible that Joe has sent me something to the Dallas Action or Quick Hits via FB Messenger, but I really don't pay much attention to Facebook anymore. So I probably missed it. And hey, Mr. Seelman, Jason Seelman, I do apologize, dude. Yeah, hit me on email because I don't check Messenger a lot. So sorry, guys.
All right, this is from our buddy Matt, LA Dodgers. He says, "Howdy, gents. I have a bizarre freebie, a JFK movie for you to watch.
All right.
It is called Time Quest 2000, and it can be found on YouTube for free.
It's
so
called what? Say that again, Rob.
Time Quest 2000.
Time Quest 2000.
Yes, it's on YouTube for free, so feel free to look it up and watch it. He said, please note that I did say that it was good, but I still suspect that you will be compelled to go on down this rabbit hole. Go ahead. I triple dog dare you." Okay.
I'll make a note of that, sir.
God damn it. I'm going to have to stick my fucking tongue on the pole, Matt. Okay. He says, the plot line is this. A time traveler shows up at JFK's suite at the Hotel Texas in Fort Worth the morning of 11/22/63. That dude informs JFK and Jackie of the dastardly deed planned for him at 12:30 in Dealey Plaza. Brother Bobby and Clint Hill take care of the grassy old gunman, and Ozzy is arrested by the DD on the 6th floor of the schoolbook depository before he can work his shitty bolt action Carcano. Why is Bobby in Dallas? Wouldn't like to know? There's lots more twists and turns, but I won't spoil all fun, especially the part where Bobby informs J. Edgar Hoover that he's in possession of pics of the big G-man relating or diddling Clyde Tolson. He's in the great state of Arizona, where we just ducked the crazy Kerry Lake bullet. Pot is perfectly legal, so I sparked up a spliff to make my way through this alternate timeline zaniness. I suggest you do the same before watching this fucking and a half.
Oh, wow.
Sincerely, Matt. LA Dodgers, baby.
You know that those crazy movies out there about that they're exaggerations, they're satire, like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Killer or whatever that was. You know that genre of movie I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
That might be interesting to do one like that where where Kennedy lives and him and Bobby go hunt down Hoover and all these other guys and do it in sort of a Hot Fuzz kind of way.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that might be a great movie. Would you?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Rob's here for me, man. Absolutely. That damn interference is driving me crazy. I would like to apologize, dear listener. Don't know what's going on around here, but it's through Skype. It's a Skype thing.
So if you would like to have your email read and commented on here on the show live and in person, me and Doug, feel free to send your emails to quickhitsjfk@gmail.com, and you too can be made fun of live on the air by us.
If you have if you have a weird email, if you want to be made fun of by us, write an email trying to be funny that's not really funny, and I guarantee you will be mocked unmercifully.
Yes, and I very much miss the emails of D. Junior Sweatpants. So please.
Yeah, and Tim the eugenicist. Where are you guys at?
Yes. Where you guys at? Come on, get your shit in here. Be a part of the show.
Maybe the mocking was too much for him. You think?
No, I don't think. No, we
Okay.
didn't treat them bad. I loved his emails.
Yeah. It was me that mocks everybody. Yeah. But, send them in anyway, guys. We like that. We like the banter. Well, look, dude, this interference is about to drive me nuts. I know it's driving the listeners nuts. So what do you say we close this thing out, Rob? Tell us where we can find your stuff through all the electronic nonsense.
Well, I have to take your word for it, Doug, because I can't hear a goddamn thing. So it sounds great to me, but I'm gonna take your word for it.
Oh yeah. After it uploads later, listen to it. You'll be like, oh fuck! I promise.
Yeah, you can find the Lone Gunman podcast anywhere you want to know a podcast. That don't matter what platform, Spotify, Amazon, Google, Apple, whatever. It's there. Even YouTube. In fact, go subscribe to my YouTube channel, the Lone Gunman Podcast. Please.
Yes.
I'm begging you.
You're
That's
almost
about
there
it.
to 1,000.
You follow along. I'm almost to 1,000. And you follow along on Twitter at the Lone Gunman 7 for all shenanigans. And the Facebook page, the Lone Gunman Facebook page. Just search it and follow it, and you will not be disappointed. Stay abreast of all breaking news for this very show and mine as well. Doug.
And you can find my show, the Dallas Action Podcast, presented by Wall Street Window, everywhere you guys find quality podcasts, originating at the world's coolest podcast hosting site, Spreaker.com, featuring continuing, ongoing, forward-moving JFK assassination research. Like this show, another fine podcast from Drop D Podcast Productions in the heart of Music Row, guys, Music City, USA. So for Rob Clark and producer Momo, this is Doug Campbell saying tune in again next time, guys, when, while discussing the difficulty he had with mathematics in high school, we'll hear Rob's former Algebra 1 teacher say,
He was more interested in the drugs and the fucking.
oh, yeah, I can totally believe that. Totally believe that.
True shit.
All right, we are out.
Every once in a while.
You got to clean your own system out sometimes. You got to take that big
Clean the
old
pipes.
that big old honking shit.
Yeah, but this is, man, recurring, brutal fucking shaking shits.
Is that the kind that gives you the
Like-
sweats? You break out in the fucking
Oh, yeah.
sweats.
Like Jeff Daniels and fucking Dumb and Dumber.
I kind of
Brutal.
like those, man. I had the opposite. Maybe I need to eat some Mexican food because I had the opposite with the fucking Thanksgiving. That shit just set up like spackle. It just, everything did.
Oh, maybe that's what's blowing out of me.
Maybe.